Marissa and Lena Holloway had always been close, until their stepfather, Dorian Vance, turned their bond into something twisted and dangerous. What started as a secret game of manipulation soon spiraled into obsession, jealousy, and betrayal. By the time the truth surfaced, one sister was dead, and the other was running for her life. Lena and Marissa Velasquez grew up in a home that seemed ordinary from the outside. Their mother, Naomi, had always done her best to provide for them after her first marriage ended in heartbreak. When she met Dorian Mercer, she saw him as a second chance at happiness. He was charming, successful, and most importantly, kind to her daughters. When they married, Naomi believed she had found the stability she had always wanted for her family. At first, Dorian played the role of a perfect stepfather. He was patient with Lena and Marissa, taking an interest in their school activities, and always being available when Naomi needed help. He took them on weekend trips, bought them thoughtful gifts, and even helped with their homework when Naomi was too exhausted from work. The girls, especially Lena, grew close to him. Marissa, the younger of the two, was more reserved but still enjoyed the attention he gave her. As the years passed, Naomi never noticed how subtle changes began to unfold within her household. It started with small things. Dorian would take Lena out for long drives, just the two of them. He would stay up late talking to Marissa when she couldn't sleep. When Naomi worked overtime, Dorian was home with the girls, and no one questioned it. He was trusted, dependable, and always present. Lena, now 17, found herself drawn to him in a way she couldn't explain. She admired his confidence, his charm, and the way he made her feel special. He listened to her like no one else did, making her feel understood and important. She noticed the way his hand lingered a little longer on her shoulder, the way his eyes held hers just a second too long. She convinced herself it was harmless, just an innocent crush, nothing more. Marissa, younger by 2 years, experienced something similar, but kept it to herself. Unlike Lena, she didn't seek out Dorian's attention, but when he gave it to her, it was intoxicating. He complimented her intelligence, made her feel mature, and always seemed to know exactly what to say to make her feel special. He made her feel like she was growing into someone desirable, someone worth noticing. Dorian knew exactly what he was doing. He was patient, never pushing too far, always giving just enough to keep them hooked. He enjoyed the power he had over them, knowing they were both drawn to him in different ways. He created a dynamic where they felt like they were competing for his affection without even realizing it. Naomi, trusting and unsuspecting, continued with her daily life, completely unaware of the storm brewing beneath her own roof. She was proud of how close her husband was with her daughters, believing she had built the perfect blended family. She often told friends how lucky she was that Dorian had stepped up, how he treated Lena and Marissa like his own. She never noticed the lingering stares, the secret glances exchanged when she wasn't looking. Then, small changes began to surface, things she brushed off at first. Lena became more defensive, snapping at her over trivial things. Marissa withdrew slightly, spending more time alone in her room. The bond between the sisters, once unbreakable, had started to shift in ways Naomi couldn't explain. She assumed it was just teenage moods, nothing out of the ordinary. Dorian made sure to keep Naomi distracted. He encouraged her to spend more time with her friends, take up hobbies, and focus on herself. She had no reason to doubt him. Whenever she brought up her concerns, he reassured her that everything was fine. The girls were just growing up, finding their independence. There was no reason to worry. But beneath the surface, a dangerous game was unfolding. Lena had started to believe that what she felt for Dorian was more than just admiration. He had slowly shaped her into thinking she was different, more mature than other girls her age. She saw herself as someone special in his eyes, someone who understood him in ways Naomi never could. She started dressing differently, choosing outfits she thought he would like. She sought out reasons to be alone with him, finding excuses to stay home when Naomi went out. Marissa, watching from a distance, felt a growing unease. She wasn't naive enough to believe this was just fatherly affection anymore. She saw how Lena looked at him, how she seemed to glow under his attention. A part of her felt sick at the thought, but another part of her felt something worse, jealousy. She didn't understand why it bothered her so much, why she felt like she was losing something she never even knew she wanted. Dorian played his role flawlessly. He never openly showed favoritism, making sure to keep both girls close enough to keep them wanting more. He spoke to them differently, tailoring his words to what each one needed to hear. With Lena, he spoke of her maturity, her intelligence, how he saw the woman she was becoming. With Marissa, he painted her as innocent, pure, someone untouched by the world. The tension grew slowly, unnoticed by Naomi, but impossible for the girls to ignore. What had once been a simple family dynamic had turned into something unrecognizable. Lena and Marissa, once inseparable sisters, had started to view each other as rivals in a game they didn't even realize they were playing. Dorian watched it all unfold with quiet satisfaction. He had built something that was no longer a family, but a web of secrets, tension, and manipulation. He knew it was only a matter of time before it all collapsed, but that was the part he enjoyed the most. Lena's obsession with Dorian deepened, her feelings evolving from admiration into something darker. She no longer saw him as just a stepfather. He was the man she wanted, the man who understood her better than anyone else. The secrecy of their relationship only made it more intoxicating. She had convinced herself that Naomi didn't deserve him, that their connection was stronger than anything he had ever shared with her mother. Lena had grown bold, finding excuses to be alone with him whenever possible. She lingered too long. When they passed each other in the hallway, brushed her hand against his whenever she had the chance, and stared at him with longing when Naomi wasn't paying attention. She thrived on the thrill of knowing something no one else did. Every stolen moment with him fed her desire, making her believe she was irreplaceable in his life. But she wasn't the only one. Marissa, quiet and careful, had kept her feelings locked away. She had spent months convincing herself that what she felt wasn't real, that she was only imagining things. But the more she watched Lena, the more she realized that her sister felt the same way. And that realization sent a surge of resentment through her. She hated the way Lena flaunted her closeness. With Dorian, she hated the way her sister spoke to him, as if she had some special place in his heart. Marissa had always been the observer, the one who kept her emotions hidden. But now she felt something she couldn't suppress: jealousy. She wanted him to notice her. She wanted him to see her the way he saw Lena. Dorian had expected this. He had spent months carefully manipulating them, knowing exactly how to push them into competition without them even realizing it. With Lena, he made her feel like a woman, mature and powerful. With Marissa, he played a different role. He made her feel delicate, someone who needed his protection, someone who was meant to be treasured. The contrast was intentional, and the results were exactly as he had planned. The sisters' relationship changed overnight. Where there had once been trust, there was now suspicion. Lena noticed the way Marissa spoke to Dorian, how she blushed when he paid attention to her. She recognized the look in her sister's eyes because she had seen it in the mirror 100 times. At first, she dismissed it as her imagination, but the signs became impossible to ignore. Dorian was spending more time with Marissa, lingering when he spoke to her, whispering things Lena couldn't hear. The realization stung like betrayal. Lena refused to accept it. She told herself that Dorian loved her, that whatever was happening with Marissa was just a game. But doubt crept into her mind like poison. Marissa, sensing her sister's growing resentment, enjoyed the power shift. For so long, she had been the quiet one, the one left in the background while Lena always took the spotlight. But now, for the first time, she felt like she had control. She could see the way Lena tensed when Dorian touched her shoulder, how her eyes darkened when he laughed at her jokes. It became a silent war, one Naomi had no idea was unfolding under her own roof. The sisters barely spoke, each watching the other carefully, waiting for an opportunity to prove that she was the one Dorian truly wanted. Dorian watched with amusement. He had never planned on choosing one over the other. That wasn't the point. He enjoyed the power, the ability to turn them against each other without lifting a finger. He knew that as long as they were fighting for his affection, they would never turn against him. But Lena wasn't willing to lose. She had given too much of herself to him, believed in their connection too deeply. She refused to let Marissa take him away. One night, when Naomi was working late, Lena confronted Marissa. She demanded to know what was happening between her and Dorian. But Marissa refused to admit anything. Instead, she played innocent, pretending she had no idea what Lena was talking about. Lena wasn't fooled. She saw through her sister's lies, saw the flicker of guilt in her eyes. The confrontation turned heated. Marissa accused Lena of being delusional, of making things up in her head. She said Dorian would never truly choose her, that she was only embarrassing herself. Lena snapped. She lunged at her sister, shoving her against the wall. Marissa fought back, clawing at Lena's arms, screaming that she was insane. Dorian, hearing the commotion, stepped in with a calm authority that made them both freeze. He pulled them apart effortlessly, his presence alone enough to silence them. Instead of being angry, he played the role of the concerned stepfather, acting as if he was simply trying to keep the peace. He told them they needed to get along, that they were sisters and should never fight like this. But behind his words was a message only they could understand. They were nothing without him. The fight changed everything. Neither Lena nor Marissa spoke about it afterward, but the tension between them only grew stronger. Naomi, still unaware, assumed her daughters were going through normal teenage drama. But this wasn't normal. Lena knew she had to do something before it was too late. She refused to let Marissa win, refused to let her sister take what was rightfully hers. And Marissa? She had spent her whole life in Lena's shadow. For the first time, she had a chance to take something away from her sister. Neither of them realized that the battle they had started would only end in destruction. The tension in the Velasquez home grew thicker with each passing day, invisible to Naomi but suffocating to Lena and Marissa. Their rivalry had transformed into something venomous, a silent war fought through stolen glances, passive-aggressive gestures, and the unspoken knowledge that only one of them could truly have Dorian. Neither girl admitted it out loud, but they both understood. This was no longer about love or admiration. This was about winning. Dorian thrived on it. He had orchestrated their competition so carefully that he barely had to do anything now. They fought for him on their own, each trying to outdo the other, each growing more desperate for his validation. He was careful not to show preference. Some days he gave Lena his undivided attention, letting her bask in the illusion that she was his favorite. Other days, he focused on Marissa, whispering reassurances that made her feel special, as if she were the only one who truly mattered. Lena couldn't take it anymore. She had given him everything, her trust, her heart, her body. And yet, he still entertained Marissa, still let her believe she had a chance. It was humiliating. She knew what she had to do. If she wanted to keep him, if she wanted to erase the possibility of Marissa ever taking him away, she had to take action. Late one night, when the house was quiet, Lena crept into Marissa's room. She had rehearsed what she would say 100 times, but when she saw her sister asleep, all of her careful planning vanished. A wave of rage crashed over her. She couldn't stand the sight of Marissa lying there, so peacefully unaware of what she had done. Marissa stirred, sensing someone watching her. When she opened her eyes and saw Lena standing over her, she tensed. There was something different about Lena's expression. It wasn't just anger, it was something deeper, something dangerous. Lena accused her of betrayal, of trying to steal Dorian away. Marissa, still groggy, tried to defend herself, but Lena wasn't interested in excuses. The argument escalated quickly, turning into a physical struggle. Marissa pushed Lena away, but Lena lunged at her, her hands wrapping around her sister's throat. Marissa gasped, clawing at Lena's arms, but her sister's grip was unrelenting. Panic set in as she realized Lena wasn't letting go. She thrashed, kicking wildly, but Lena held on, fueled by months of jealousy and resentment. Then, suddenly, strong hands pulled Lena back. Dorian. He had been watching, waiting. He had let them spiral into chaos, but now he had to intervene before things went too far. Lena broke down, sobbing, apologizing, begging him not to be angry. Marissa, coughing and gasping for air, scrambled away, her mind racing. Dorian comforted Lena, holding her close, whispering soothing words. He told her it was okay, that he understood. He always understood, and in that moment, Lena believed him. Marissa, however, saw the situation with new clarity. This wasn't just about her and Lena anymore. This was about him. He had created this. He had manipulated them into destroying each other, and they had played right into his hands. Fear settled into her bones. If she stayed in this house, she wouldn't survive. Not with Lena so consumed by her obsession, and certainly not with Dorian pulling the strings. She had to escape. But Marissa also knew that simply running away wouldn't be enough. Dorian wouldn't let her go so easily. If she wanted to survive, she needed to make sure she wasn't the one who disappeared. Someone had to die. Marissa could feel it in her bones. She was running out of time. Lena was unraveling, and Dorian was enjoying every second of it. She had spent months ignoring the truth, convincing herself that she still had control over the situation. But now she saw it for what it was. Dorian wasn't just manipulating them. He was orchestrating their destruction. She had to act fast. Every day she stayed in that house, she was in danger. Lena's attack had been a warning. Next time, she wouldn't hesitate. And Dorian? He wouldn't stop her. He might even encourage it. But escaping wasn't enough. Marissa had thought about running, about packing her bags and leaving in the middle of the night. But deep down, she knew it wouldn't end there. If she left, Dorian would follow. He wouldn't let her walk away. He had spent too much time controlling her, molding her, twisting her into something he could use. He wasn't going to let his grip slip so easily. And Lena wouldn't let her go either. Not after what had happened. Not after their fight. She saw Marissa as a threat, and she was willing to do whatever it took to eliminate that threat. That's when the thought came to her. Cold, sharp, terrifying. If she wanted to survive, if she wanted to be free, there was only one solution. Someone had to die. The idea clung to her, wrapping around her mind like a suffocating fog. She had never considered herself capable of something like this. She wasn't a killer. But wasn't it self-defense? Wasn't she protecting herself? Her hands shook as she thought about it. She needed a plan. Dorian was smart, always one step ahead. If she was going to outmaneuver him, she had to be careful. She had to be patient. She spent days watching him, studying his routine. He was predictable in some ways, but unpredictable in others. That was what made him so dangerous. But Marissa had an advantage. Lena, she was Dorian's weakness. He had spent so much time feeding her obsession, making her believe she was special. Marissa could use that. She started planting seeds, subtle at first. She let Lena see things she wanted her to see. Dorian spending more time with her, lingering, in conversation, whispering things just out of earshot. She let Lena believe that Dorian had chosen her instead. It didn't take long for the cracks to show. Lena had always been unstable, but now she was unraveling at a terrifying pace. Marissa could see the rage simmering beneath the surface, the way her sister clenched her fists when she thought no one was looking. the way her eyes darkened whenever she saw Marissa near Dorian. Then came the moment Marissa had been waiting for. One evening, when Naomi was working late, Marissa found Lena pacing in her room, muttering to herself, her hands shaking. She had finally reached her breaking point. Lena accused Marissa of trying to take Dorian away, of playing games with him, of trying to steal what was hers. Marissa pretended to be scared, pretended to back away, just enough to push Lena over the edge. And then Lena snapped. She lunged at Marissa, grabbing her by the hair, dragging her toward the dresser. Marissa fought back, shoving her sister away, but Lena was relentless. She clawed at Marissa's arms, her breath ragged, her eyes wild with rage. Dorian entered the room just as Marissa had hoped he would. He saw the chaos, saw Lena attacking, saw Marissa fighting back, and for the first time, he looked amused. He didn't move to stop it. He just stood there, watching, waiting. That was when Marissa knew. Dorian wanted this. He wanted them to destroy each other. But Marissa had planned for this. She reached for the lamp on the dresser and swung it with all her strength. The impact sent Lena stumbling back, her head cracking against the corner of the nightstand. She crumpled to the floor, motionless. For a moment, there was silence. Dorian's expression shifted, his amusement fading into something unreadable. Marissa stepped back, her heart pounding. She didn't know if Lena was alive or dead. She didn't care. She had done what needed to be done. She looked up at Dorian, expecting him to be angry. But instead, he smiled, and that was when she realized she wasn't free yet. Marissa's breath came in short, uneven gasps as she stared at Lena's unmoving body. The room was deathly silent except for the pounding of her own heartbeat. Dorian took a step forward, his expression unreadable. She had expected him to be furious, to lash out, to punish her for hurting Lena. Instead, he simply stood there, watching her with an eerie kind of satisfaction. She didn't trust it. Marissa backed away, her hands shaking. Lena lay motionless on the floor, her chest barely rising and falling. She was still alive. A flicker of guilt shot through Marissa, but she swallowed it down. There was no room for regret now. Dorian knelt beside Lena, brushing her hair away from her face. His movements were slow, calculated, almost gentle, but his eyes held something else, something dark. Marissa wanted to run, but her legs wouldn't move. She had played right into his hands. He turned to Marissa, still smiling. He told her there was no need to be afraid, that she had done well. Marissa's stomach twisted. She had expected chaos, fury, maybe even violence, but not this, not approval. She realized then that Dorian had wanted this all along. He had been waiting for them to break, pushing them to the edge just to see which one would survive, and she had given him exactly what he wanted. But it wasn't over. Lena let out a weak groan, her fingers twitching. She was waking up. Panic surged through Marissa. If Lena survived, she would come after her. She wouldn't stop. The look in her sister's eyes before the attack had been pure hatred, and now Marissa had given her even more reason to want her dead. Dorian's smile faded as he glanced between the two sisters. Then, without hesitation, he reached down and wrapped his hands around Lena's throat. Marissa's breath caught in her chest. She should have expected it. Dorian never left loose ends. Lena's eyes fluttered open just as his grip tightened. Her face contorted in shock, then fear. She clawed weakly at his hands, struggling to break free, but she was too weak. Marissa was frozen in place, unable to look away. She should stop him. She should do something. But she didn't move. Lena's movements slowed, her eyes locked onto Marissa's, pleading. Then finally, she went still. Dorian let go, stepping back to admire his work. Marissa felt sick. The room was spinning, her stomach twisting into knots. She had thought she was fighting for her survival, but the truth was, she had never been in control. Dorian had been playing them both from the start. He turned to her, still calm, still composed, as if nothing had happened. He told her it was done, that she had proven herself, that they could finally be together. Marissa's blood ran cold. She had fought so hard to escape, but she had only dug herself in deeper. Dorian thought she was his. Now, her mind raced. If she refused him, she wouldn't make it out of this house alive. If she tried to run, he would hunt her down. There was only one way out. She nodded, forcing herself to stay calm. She needed to buy herself time. Dorian reached for her hand, leading her out of the room, stepping over Lena's lifeless body as if she were nothing more than a discarded object. Marissa followed, her pulse hammering in her ears. She had won. But at what cost? The police would come eventually. Naomi would come home and find the body. But Marissa knew Dorian would already have a plan. He would blame it on her, twist the story, make it look like she had snapped. He would paint himself as the victim, and people would believe him. She had to act before he could. Dorian poured himself a drink, his back turned to her. He was too comfortable, too sure of himself. Marissa reached for the heavy glass bottle on the counter. She didn't hesitate. She brought it down hard against the back of his head. The sound of shattering glass echoed through the kitchen. Dorian staggered, his body lurching forward before crumpling to the ground. Blood pooled beneath him, seeping into the cracks of the tile floor. Marissa stood over him, panting. She didn't wait to see if he was still breathing. She ran, out the front door, into the night, her bare feet slapping against the pavement. She didn't look back. She didn't need to. The nightmare was over, but she would never be free.